As the detective flipped through the pages of his notebook, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement at the top 10 murder cases he had been assigned to solve. Number 1. The Mansion Killer. The family of the wealthy businessman was gathered in the grand living room of their estate, the mood somber as they waited for the detective to arrive. The butler had found the businessman dead in his study, a single bullet wound to the head. All suspects were members of the wealthy family, each with a motive to kill. The detective delved deeper into the family's secrets and lies, and discovered that the businessman's wife had been having an affair with his business partner, and together they had planned to kill him for his money and control of the company. The killer was the last person anyone would suspect, the devoted wife. Number 2. The Small Town Secret. The detective arrived in the small town, where a local farmer had been found brutally murdered. The townspeople were tight-lipped and unwilling to talk, but the detective persisted in his investigation. He soon discovered that the farmer had uncovered a dark secret about the town's past, and that several prominent citizens were involved in covering it up. The killer was someone trusted and respected in the community, who would do anything to keep the truth from coming out. The detective solved the case, but the small town would never be the same again. Number 3. The Art of Deception. The detective was called to the art gallery, where a famous art critic was found murdered. The gallery was filled with priceless masterpieces, but the detective was more interested in the people who had access to them. He soon discovered that the victim had uncovered a forgery ring, and that the forgers had killed him to keep their operation a secret. The detective unmasked the forgers and the mastermind behind the ring, a well-respected art dealer who had been deceiving the art world for years. The art world was shocked, but justice was served and the forgeries were exposed. Number 4. The Cruise Killer. The detective boarded the luxury cruise ship, where a passenger had been found murdered in their cabin. The ship was full of suspects, from wealthy vacationers to the ship's crew. The detective soon discovered that the victim had uncovered a smuggling operation on board, and the smugglers of the ring had killed him to keep their operation a secret. The detective unmasked the criminals and put a stop to the illegal activities, but not before another murder occurred. The ship's captain was involved in the smuggling ring, and the detective had to stop him before he killed again. Justice was served and the passengers could continue their vacation in peace. Number 5. The Amnesia Murder. The detective found a man wandering the streets, with no memory of who he was or what had happened. The man had a bullet wound and a gun on him, with no recollection of how he got them. The detective helped him piece together his past, and they discovered that the man was a successful businessman and he had been set up by his business partner and wife, who had planned to kill him and take over the business. The man regained his memory and helped the detective bring the criminals to justice. In the end, the man decided to start a new life, leaving behind the old one filled with deception and greed. Number 6. The Hollywood Homicide. The detective arrived at the scene of the crime. A famous movie star was found brutally murdered in her Hollywood Hills mansion. The star's entourage and the Hollywood elite were suspects in the case, each with a motive to kill. The detective delved deeper into the case, uncovering a web of lies, jealousy, and betrayal. The killer was the star's agent, who had been embezzling money from her and feared being exposed. The case was solved, but the detective couldn't shake off the feeling of disgust at the superficial and morally bankrupt world of Hollywood. Number 7. The Campus Crime. The detective arrived at the college campus, where a student had been found murdered in the library. The case was complicated by the fact that the victim was a transfer student and had no known enemies. The detective delved deeper into the case, uncovering a web of lies, jealousy, and betrayal. The killer was the victim's roommate, who was jealous of the victim's success and had planned to kill her to take her place. The case was solved, but the detective couldn't shake off the feeling of disgust at the cutthroat and competitive nature of college life. Number 8. The Museum Mystery. The detective arrived at the museum, where a priceless artifact had been stolen and a guard had been found murdered. The museum staff and the security were suspects in the case, each with a motive to steal the artifact or cover up the crime. The detective delved deeper into the case, uncovering a web of lies, greed, and betrayal. The killer was the museum's director, who had staged the crime to cover up his own theft of the artifact, which he intended to sell on the black market. The case was solved, but the detective couldn't shake off the feeling of disgust at the greed and corruption that existed in the art world. Number 9. The Corporate Conspiracy. The detective arrived at the businessman's office, where he had been found murdered in his own office. The suspects were the colleagues and business partners, each with a motive to kill for power and control of the company. The detective delved deeper into the case, uncovering a web of lies, greed, and betrayal. The killer was the victim's trusted business partner, who had orchestrated the murder and had planned to take over the company. The case was solved, but the detective couldn't shake off the feeling of disgust at the greed and corruption that existed in the corporate world.